definitely the same. Like lay as much as you can on the paper, create processes on the paper, and don't give up. Definitely, like as you said, business it's all about trial and errors. Like you're supposed to try, you're supposed to adapt, you're supposed to find that sweet niche in any market, where you can bloom your business.
Hey everyone, this is Devin Miller here with another episode of The Inventive Journey. I'm your host, Devin Miller, the serial entrepreneur that's grown several startups into 7 and 8 figure businesses, as well as the founder and CEO of Miller IP Law, where he helps startups and small businesses with their patents and trademarks. If you ever need help with yours, just go to strategymeeting.com, grab some time with us to chat, and we're always here to help. Now, today we've got another great guest on the podcast, which I am almost certain before I even try, I'll butcher his name, but I'm going to try anyway. So Slava Podmurnyi. That's as close as I'm
Well,
going to get. We'll go with Slava because I can at least get that mostly right. But Slava got a master's degree in computer science when he was starting out. Also tried a few startups while I was in school or college. Started doing more service-oriented businesses and started out doing some freelance gigs. Then a college friend decided to get the business going after they graduated. So they started doing some apps and iPhone work on projects and different things, including, like, as an example, social network for dogs. Found the projects to be boring, so they went more into the gaming direction, and then has been expanding the business into infrastructure, servers, front end platforms, and otherwise doing things to scale up the business. So with that much as an introduction, welcome to the podcast, Slava.
hello, Devin. Nice to meet you, and thank you for the opportunity, to share, I don't know, my experience with your auditory.
Absolutely excited to have you on. So I just kind of gave a much quicker overview to a longer journey. So why don't we back up just a bit and kind of tell us how your journey got started, going to the school and college and getting your computer science degree.
Yeah, like from the very childhood, I was really impressed about IT. Like my biggest motivation was to, be like get this amount of freedom, which I thought like IT people have, all the time. You can work remotely. Even at that time, I thought like, oh my God, you can work remotely. No need to go to the office and, live a good life. So that's probably was the biggest motivation. The second one was to, um, I liked like to play computer games, and I thought like one day I'll like create my own computer games. So that pushed me to the college. In college, like I liked computer science the most. Like other things were not so important for me, maybe. So I was mostly concentrated on computer science.
So,
And but
yeah, and so you went into computer science. Makes sense, kind of fits with the interest that you'd had as you were growing up. And so, but one of the other things you mentioned, which I think is great, and I started towards the tail end of a very long educational journey. Started doing some startups and things, but you got started earlier on. And was that just kind of out of a, hey, I want income and I need to make some money while I'm in college, or hey, I want to try out my skills and try and get something going, or I just want to figure things out, or kind of how did you start doing startups while you were earning your degree?
it was like like too slow for us, the university, a little bit too boring, just doing synthetic tasks, just not doing practical things. It was too boring. And we decided like, oh my God, like there's so much opportunity outside. And we started, participate in some startup incubators, doing some small startup. The first startup we made was like location-based services based on Wi-Fi networks, so we were driving around the city, mapping Wi-Fi networks with GPS coordinates, and writing a software. We even released it to Samsung platform. I don't remember, they had like a lot of that platforms already, so one of those. But eventually, like we started doing like a lot of service, helping people just build their software, help them with startups from the software engineering point of view. So that is where we understood like, okay, we can make money out of it, not just interest. And that's where we started doing business. I participated like in one company, but that was a little bit too harsh, too boring. I don't know, and we switched to our own company at some point with my partner.
So now give us an idea. I mean, what were some of the, so as you're getting your degree and you're trying to do some of these, what were the startups or what were the ideas that you guys worked on?
Uh, like again, like probably I was a few times I was really close, to not finish the university. So you can understand like the priority list. Education was like much lower than just improving my career and doing startups. We were running also conferences inside the university, gathering people, sharing IT knowledge at the same time. So we were trying to find ourselves. As I mentioned, like at some point we have found that okay, we can do service and it works. The business model is operational. Yes, we have found that it's possible to make money out of it, not only interest.
Hmm.
So we have started this like service business, and we're still doing it until like 12, 13 years from the university.
And
Maybe
sorry, and I
it's
missed
too
it.
long.
We said the service or business was doing what again?
Uh, like we started like doing iPhone applications. At that time, iPhones were released. The App Store. People were, crazy doing some simple applications and try to make like millions out of those applications without marketing and a lot of complicated approaches people doing right now.
So what, and just out of curiosity, what was the first kind of service, first project you worked on or the first one you tried to get going?
Yeah, like as you mentioned, like at the beginning, the first one was a social network for dogs. Not only dogs, but it's like for dog owners.
Hmm.
And that was like kind of copy of early Instagram. So like you can you as a person able to register, add your photos, add your dog's profiles, fill those profiles, and fill them with content. So it was like a bright idea at that time, but that startup never met its goals. The person behind it like decided not to invest too much in marketing and just tried to push it organically on the app store. That I believe that was a mistake. But
So you
still.
try, but I think that one of the things that I think oftentimes people shy away from is, hey, we're going to, because we're worried about making a mistake or not getting it right the first time, we never try. And so even if sometimes you're saying, hey, maybe the social networks for dog was a good idea, but it was the wrong timing, or maybe it just was a bad idea and people didn't want to adopt it, or you didn't have the right people on board. I don't think that you should shy away from trying it, but rather it should be an opportunity. You're saying, hey, we'll try this out. We'll see if it works. If it doesn't, then we can learn a lot along the way and then build that out, build something else out in the meantime. And so I think that there's still a great example of, building something, trying it out, and otherwise seeing if you can make it work. So you tried that, that first one as an example, social networking for dogs. Okay, it didn't work out. Maybe it wasn't the right timing or you didn't have the right plan. But so where did you kind of build it from there? Kind of what was the next project or kind of what did you move on to?
Mhm. There were like a few small projects after that, like some ticketing systems and other stuff. But I realized like, oh my God, it's so boring, just doing just applications. Usually it's like you need to build like a small backend, connect this backend to the front end, and just populate the front end with the information you got from the backend. That's it. It was so boring at some point. And I told to my partner, okay, let's do games. Computer games is cool, and it's my childhood dream. So we have started like doing computer games again for iPhone mostly because we had that domain expertise. At that time, like we were doing business, and we were developing ourselves those products. The company was like small, maybe 5, maybe 10 people. So it was still more like a home based, like family business mostly probably. So we started to do games, and like few of our clients got successful startups and games. As you mentioned, they were persistent. They tried one product, they realized problems, they started to do another one, and eventually, at some point, they have found this like niche where they can earn money and generate like positive revenue out of their business. Because when you're a businessman, you suppose to find solutions. That's your job to adapt to the market and find things where you can sell.
No, so it makes sense. And, I think that it probably was, a good or an opportune time. Hey, we're in the business. We've, games or Apple Store and the iPhone and that are being newer, presents opportunities to make things. So now you started doing the gaming, which you found, saying, hey, this is more interesting or more exciting than some of the other projects you were working on. So you continued to grow that and keep doing that. But I think if I remember right, then you from there, as you decided to get into games, you also started to expand out the business. So you did work on infrastructure and servers and front end. So kind of what made you go from focusing on games, which is saying, hey, this is interesting and fun, to expanding out and going in additional directions.
Yeah, I mean, eventually, like we have started to do like more complicated games, and those games usually also involved like you need a backend for a sophisticated game. And when you do a backend, you need like a good infrastructure, to somehow hold and host that backend somehow. So we have started like doing more complicated games, but at some point we got like we start receiving a lot of more like less entertainment, less game oriented request, and more, like more business things. At that time, we called that niche like serious games. Now you would call it metaverse probably, or a digital twin, more better names, or interactive application. So those like are like simulations, like for example, we had a virtual laboratory with Iowa University. We built like a big product there, and other things where people were able, to do some security tests, some medical based applications based in virtual reality, and things so on. So it's like mostly like games, but doing some purpose and helping businesses to use their business models. So and that is where we have started like doing more complicated projects, because there's like in games it's entertainment, and you have responsibility for your players, to enjoy the experience. When you do business, sometimes you have more responsibility, because it's like, imagine it's a medical institution, yes, and your software is being used by medical professionals. You cannot fail there. You cannot afford being unavailable for like days. I mean, your server cannot be down for days. Yes, it's supposed to be minutes, maybe the worst case there. So we have
No,
started doing more complicated things at that time.
So, and it makes sense. It sounds like it's probably a natural evolution as things get more complex, as you gain in, skills and background and offerings and that, then you're having to work to, provide that service offering to make sure, as you said, when it's more critical and when you're having to deal with it, that they're having that the infrastructure in place. And so, kind of as that brings us a bit to where you're at today, now looking a bit into the future, the next 6 to 12 months, kind of, where do you see things headed, or what's the next step for you guys?
I believe like we're still like growing as a company. It's not big still. It's like 85 people right now, and we have big plans to grow in further. As we grow, like our services also grow with us. So what we plan to do is to add more infrastructure work, because I believe like every business nowadays supposed to be digitized. Yes, like if you don't have like any digital presence, that's it. It's not a viable business model. You must have a digital twin of your business online. But if you have that, you definitely require some sort of infrastructure. So that is where we want to have more responsibility for our clients, and we want to improve the amount of infrastructure we do for our clients and the complexity of that infrastructure.
No?
The simple thing, like when you do infrastructure, there are like a lot of ways of implementation, but if you do it in a correct way, in the right way, you reduce costs for your clients for maintaining the infrastructure, and those like amount of money they can use for new internal startups and improve their business, and win the competition as a result. So I see that as a big mission somehow.
Well, sounds like an exciting future and a lot of great opportunities and areas to expand. So, Well, as we've now kind of reached the present day of your journey and even looking a bit into the future of where things are hopefully headed, it's always a great time to transition to the two questions I always ask at the end of each episode. So we'll jump to those now. So the first question I always ask is, along your journey, what was the worst business decision you ever made? And what'd you learn from it?
You said like how long was the journey? Yeah,
I
great.
said, what was the worst business decision you ever made, and what did you learn from it?
Okay, so the worst probably business decision was to start the business without, any plans. Like we decided like, okay, it's time to start the business. No business plan, nothing. So I would recommend anyone who starts the business at least create a business plan, not in your head, lay down it on a paper, create like economical model, try to understand your finance model, and don't give up. Like it will not work. You will in a few months you will probably write a new plan, but you're always supposed to have something on the paper. Without it, it's really hard to forecast, and it's really hard to understand if you're satisfied with it or not.
No, I think that that makes their sense, and is certainly a great mistake to learn from. Second question now that I ask is, now if you're talking to somebody that's just getting into a startup or a small business, what would be the one piece of advice you give them?
Probably. Yeah, it's definitely the same. Like lay as much as you can on the paper, create processes on the paper, and don't give up. Definitely, like as you said, business it's all about trial and errors. Like you're supposed to try, you're supposed to adapt, you're supposed to find that sweet niche in any market, where you can bloom your business.
No, and I think that makes sense. And I think that, a lot of times when you're getting into a business, oftentimes you're wanting to just jump in, get started. It's exciting and you see a lot of opportunity, and you're take a step back and putting that pen to paper, getting a plan in place can certainly be beneficial. Now, I think most of the time as you get into the business, you're going to change and you're going to evolve and you're going to pivot and you're going to learn things. And so I think people are saying, well, if I'm going to change and evolve and pivot and learn things, why do I need to bother and put pen to paper? But I think one, it helps you or convince yourself that it's a worthwhile endeavor that to put your time, money, and effort to invest in. And two, it still give you some direction. It's not like you simply just throw it all out. You're just saying, hey, here's or the direction we're headed. Here's what we have planned. And then we're willing to adjust that plan as we go along, but you can still have that plan. So I think that's definitely great piece of advice. So with that, now as we're wrapping up the episode, if people want to reach out to you, they want to be a customer, they want to be a client, they want to be an employee, they want to be an investor, they want to be your next best friend, any or all of the above, what's the best way to reach out to you, contact you, find out more?
I believe our website and our contact form is the best place because we constantly monitor like how people send requests to us, and also my email. Like I'm always open for bright emails, and I'm glad to respond to people questions all the time.
Awesome. Well, I definitely encourage people to reach out, connect, and if nothing else, make a new best friend. And so with that, thank you again, Slav, for coming on the podcast. It's been it's been a pleasure. Now, for all of you that are listeners and are out there, if you have your own journey to share and you'd like to be a guest on the podcast, we'd love to have you. So just go to inventiveguest.com, apply to be on the show. A couple more things as listeners. Make sure to click share, subscribe, and leave us a review. So it helps us to make sure that we can share all these amazing journeys with even more startups and small businesses. And on that note, if you ever need help with your startup or small business, with patents or trademarks or anything else, just go to strategymeeting.com, grab some time with us to chat, and we're always here to help. Well, thank you again, Slav, for coming on the podcast, and wish the next leg of your journey even better than the last.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you for the opportunity to be here.